So you see, the future of this world is African. Allow me to say this once again a little louder for those of you in the back. The future is African. Already today, Africa is a catalyst for human potential and development, as well as for economic reform and ecological stability. Africa is a catalyst for systemic change. If this reality, which is fact-based and straightforward, seems provocative or unsettling, perhaps it's...
Let us take you somewhere for a moment, not to a boardroom, not to a laboratory, but to a quiet field in Ghana. You're standing there, looking at rows of bamboo swaying in the breeze. Nothing fancy, nothing high-tech, just green stalks moving gently like they've been doing for centuries. But here's the twist. Under that calm, everyday scene, an energy revolution is forming. The world's largest bamboo biofuel refinery, a $1.3 billion leap into the future, is about to rise from this very ground. And what makes it even more surreal is how quietly Ghana is doing it. No noise, no desperation for approval, just confidence. A sense of, we know exactly what we're building, and the world will understand soon enough. This isn't just an energy project. It's a shift in identity, a challenge to old assumptions, a moment where Africa stops asking and starts leading. So let's talk about how it all began. You know, if you had told someone 10 years ago that Ghana would one day become the center of a global clean energy story, they probably would have smiled politely and moved on. Not because Ghana lacked potential, but because the world never imagined Africa stepping into a lead role in a race dominated by wealthy nations and billion-dollar tech giants. And yet, here we are, watching Ghana take a step so bold it's forcing analysts, investors, and governments to adjust their expectations overnight. The question is, how did this happen? How did a country that the global energy system once treated as a footnote suddenly walk into the spotlight with a $1.3 billion project that countries with massive budgets still hesitate to attempt? It started with something surprisingly simple. Ghana stopped waiting. For decades, African nations have listened to the same repetitive message: you're not ready yet. You're not ready for large-scale industrialization. You're not ready for advanced green technology. You're not ready to lead global innovation. The world repeated this narrative so many times that some people started believing it. But Ghana didn't. Ghana looked at the endless meetings, the endless capacity-building workshops, the endless promises of funding that rarely appeared, and quietly decided, enough. Instead of raising its hand in global forums asking for opportunities, it created one. That mindset shift, that decision to move without permission, is what birthed the Amaba biorefinery complex. And let's be honest, the scale of this refinery shocked people. A $1.3 billion bamboo-based biofuel complex in West Africa? A project capable of producing sustainable aviation fuel, renewable diesel, industrial lignin, green naphtha, furfural, and more? To some observers abroad, it sounded too ambitious, too advanced, too un-African in their minds. But that reaction itself revealed the problem. The world had grown far too comfortable underestimating Africa. Ghana wasn't trying to impress anyone. It was simply following a logical path. The country has bamboo, it has land, it has human talent, it has the political will, and, most importantly, it has a growing hunger for industrial independence. The old model, exporting raw materials and begging for loans, doesn't work anymore. Ghana needed a new playbook, and this refinery became the first page of that playbook. Create value at home, refine at home, innovate at home, and let the world come to you. That's why the government backed it, the private sector embraced it, and rural communities welcomed it. This wasn't just a business project, it was a national shift in identity, from a resource supplier to a resource transformer. But all of this leads to a bigger, more fascinating question. Out of every possible resource, from sunlight to wind to traditional crops, why did Ghana choose bamboo? Why this plant, so humble, so overlooked, yet so central to a billion-dollar leap into the future? So the real question becomes, why bamboo? Why did this plant become the key to Ghana's green energy revolution? If you've ever seen bamboo up close, you know it doesn't look like anything special. It's tall, it's green, it's peaceful. It doesn't scream billion-dollar industry. It doesn't look like something that could power airplanes or supply global chemical markets, and maybe that's the first reason the world slept on it for so long. It was hiding in plain sight. But Ghana didn't just look at bamboo as a plant. Ghana saw a system, a solution, a resource that grows like it's fueled by ambition. And in a world desperately scrambling for renewable energy sources, that matters more than ever. Bamboo grows unbelievably fast. Some species can shoot up nearly a meter in a single day. It regenerates without replanting, survives droughts, absorbs more carbon than many trees, and thrives across wide stretches of Ghana. For years, environmental researchers quietly noted that Africa held some of the world's richest bamboo landscapes, but nobody connected that fact to a large-scale industrial opportunity. Then Cambridge Industrial Partners stepped in with a very different mindset. They didn't ask, what can bamboo do right now? They asked, what could bamboo become if we paired it with the right technology? That question changed everything. Once Cambridge partnered with two global giants, Honeywell and Chempolis, bamboo transformed from a raw material into a high-tech feedstock. Honeywell brought in cutting-edge systems for producing sustainable aviation fuel (SAF), the fuel airlines around the world are desperately trying to secure for future emissions targets. Chempolis provided advanced biomass processing technology that turns agricultural plants into valuable chemicals used in countless industries. Suddenly, that simple bamboo plant became the doorway to renewable diesel, bioethanol, furfural, green naphtha, lignin, and more. These aren't small products. These are high-value exports that industries rely on every single day. And here's the thing the world did not expect. Bamboo allows Ghana to do something incredibly rare in global green energy: scale fast. Traditional energy crops take years. Forest timber takes decades. Bamboo, it's basically the Formula One driver of the plant world. Fast, tough, predictable. That's why timing matters. Renewable energy demand is exploding right now. Airlines are legally required to reduce carbon emissions. Manufacturing companies are pushing for greener supply chains. Countries are racing to secure stable sources of bio-based chemicals. Ghana walked into this global race at exactly the moment when everyone else is struggling to keep up. All of this leads to a more human question, though, because at the end of the day, industries are built on people, not plants. And while bamboo is powerful, its real impact isn't in its height or speed. It's in what it can do for Ghanaian lives. Farmers, women's cooperatives, engineers, young graduates, transporters, everyone is touched by this chain. So here's the next question we have to ask. How many lives will this bamboo mega project actually transform across Ghana? And in what ways will ordinary people feel this change? When people hear about a billion-dollar project, they usually imagine machines, factories, pipes, and shiny steel structures. But the truth is, the heart of this entire bamboo revolution isn't metal, it's people. Real people. Farmers in rural villages, young graduates looking for a chance, women who've been running small cooperatives to support their families, truck drivers, technicians, engineers, everyday workers who often feel forgotten by the big industries that pass over Africa. This refinery, though, doesn't just touch their lives, it completely rewrites them.
We need to get the resource material right. We need to bring in different species and plant on large scale and manage them scientifically.
Let's start with the farmers because they are the foundation. Bamboo is not like cocoa or maize, which can become risky when market prices crash. It grows fast, demands little, survives drought, and keeps regenerating. That means consistent work, consistent harvests, and consistent income. A farmer in Oti or Ashanti won't have to guess if next year will be good or bad. Bamboo gives predictable cycles. And when the refinery starts needing a massive year-round supply, thousands of farmers across Ghana will suddenly find themselves part of a stable, guaranteed value chain. That stability is life-changing. Then there are the women, especially those in rural communities, who often end up handling the toughest parts of agricultural labor. Bamboo cooperatives are already empowering women across East Africa, and Ghana is set to experience the same. Bamboo harvesting, sorting, nursery management, and primary processing fit perfectly into cooperative work. Instead of low-income seasonal work, women get a sustainable, repeatable business that feeds directly into a billion-dollar industry. It's not charity. It's not inclusion programs. It's real economic power.
President, As fate would have it, the tables are turning, and Africa's role in the authorship of whatever is yet to come for this world is going to be huge, and it will be consequential.
And what about the youth? This is where the impact becomes even more interesting. For years, young graduates in engineering, environmental science, energy management, and chemistry have faced a painful reality: a degree but nowhere to use it. So many dream of scholarships abroad or visas to Europe because the jobs they trained for simply don't exist locally. This refinery flips that dilemma. Suddenly, Ghana needs chemical technicians, safety managers, industrial operators, fuel analysts, mechanical engineers, electrical engineers, and logistics specialists. Instead of chasing opportunities outside the continent, Ghanaian youth can finally apply their skills at home, in an industry that's modern, global, and future-proof. But the ripple doesn't end there. Transport workers will run trucks from plantations to processing centers, welders, carpenters, and construction teams will help expand the facilities. IT specialists will manage industrial systems. Even restaurants and small roadside businesses will feel the shockwave once thousands of people start working across the bamboo belt. When you add all of these layers together, the farmers, the cooperatives, the technicians, the engineers, the support businesses, you don't get a few jobs. You get a whole new economic ecosystem that feeds itself. Still, there is something bigger hiding underneath all of this. Bamboo doesn't only change wallets and careers, it changes landscapes, forests, soil, water cycles. The entire environmental health of a region can shift because of how bamboo is planted and harvested. And that takes us straight to the next question. Can a massive bamboo industry really help repair Ghana's environment, or is that just a nice idea on paper? Let's pause for a second to say big thank you to the Black Culture Diary community, where Black voices, stories, and legacies are preserved and amplified. By becoming a member, you're not just supporting the channel, you're becoming part of a powerful cultural movement. Let's continue. When you talk to older farmers in Ghana, especially those who've worked the land for decades, they'll tell you something simple but painful. The soil isn't what it used to be. Forests that once stood tall have thinned out. Hills that used to hold moisture now dry out faster. Areas that were fertile a generation ago sometimes crack under the sun today. It's not because Ghanaians don't care about the land, it's because economic survival has forced communities to rely on timber, charcoal, and overworked soil for far too long. And that wear and tear adds up. So when you bring bamboo into the picture, something interesting happens. The land suddenly gets a second chance. Bamboo is one of those rare resources that gives more than it takes. You plant it once, and it keeps coming back year after year, without demanding heavy fertilizers or expensive care. It grips the soil with deep, strong roots that hold everything together, making it almost impossible for erosion to rip the land apart during heavy rains. In places where farmlands have been washed away or degraded, bamboo steps in like a quiet healer, stabilizing slopes, reviving nutrients, and acting as a living barrier against soil exhaustion. That's not theory. It's exactly what environmental researchers have documented in Asia, Latin America, and now parts of Africa. And here's where it gets even more interesting. Bamboo grows incredibly well on land that other crops have given up on. Areas considered worn out or unproductive can suddenly become profitable again. The moment farmers realize they can earn a steady income by restoring land instead of abandoning it, everything changes. Land restoration stops being a moral responsibility and becomes a real economic opportunity. In rural communities, that mental shift is huge, but the story doesn't end there. One of Ghana's biggest environmental challenges has been the pressure on forests. Too excessive cutting for firewood, timber, and charcoal. Bamboo gives people an alternative. It burns efficiently, it grows back on its own, and it matures quickly. So as bamboo plantations expand, the pressure on natural forests automatically decreases. The refinery then adds a powerful incentive. It pays well for bamboo. That means instead of cutting down native forests for income, communities will grow and protect bamboo plantations because that's where the money is. In simple terms, income aligns with conservation. And the beauty of this whole system is how naturally everything connects. When farmers protect the land produces more bamboo. More bamboo supports the refinery. The refinery supports jobs. Jobs support families. Families support education, healthcare, and stability. And all of that supports Ghana's long-term environmental resilience. What looks like a simple plant ends up becoming the backbone of climate recovery, community development, and industrial growth all at once. But healing the land is only one part of this larger story. The world is watching Ghana right now, not just because of bamboo, but because this project hints at something much bigger. A shift in global power, a reshuffling of who leads the green energy race. And that brings us to the next big question. What does this bamboo mega project mean for Africa's position in the global energy and economic landscape? Here's a reminder to please like and share the video and subscribe to our channel to watch more videos on Black culture, history, civilization, and identity. Let's continue now. If you look at the history of global energy, there has always been a clear hierarchy. The West creates the technology, Asia manufactures at scale, and Africa supplies the raw materials, usually for pennies on the dollar. It's a system designed to keep power concentrated in the same set of countries again and again. But Ghana's bamboo refinery quietly disrupts that entire order. And the funny part? Ghana isn't bragging. It's not calling press conferences or begging for recognition. It's simply doing the work. And the world is slowly realizing that Africa just slipped into a position nobody expected it to take this soon. Think about it. The world is in a race to find steady sources of sustainable aviation fuel. Airlines are being pressured to cut emissions. Countries are making climate pledges they can't meet without new fuel sources. Companies are looking for greener chemical inputs because consumers demand them. And out of nowhere, Ghana shows up with a refinery that can produce exactly what the world is desperate for. Not in 10 years, not after endless feasibility studies, but now. That alone shifts the power dynamic. This time, Africa isn't just shipping raw bamboo or raw minerals to be processed somewhere else. Ghana is refining the raw material into the finished product. And that changes everything. When you sell raw bamboo, you make sense. When you sell sustainable aviation fuel or industrial chemicals, you make serious money. The kind that builds economies, not just warehouses. This refinery is Africa telling the world, if you want our resources, you'll be buying them on our terms. The global implications are bigger than most people realize. Once Ghana starts exporting SAF and green chemicals, airlines, manufacturers, and energy companies will rely on West Africa in a way they never have before. And reliance creates influence. Influence creates bargaining power. For decades, Africa walked into trade negotiations with weak cards. Now Ghana walks in holding something the world cannot ignore. A green resource pipeline that aligns perfectly with global climate goals. And this isn't just about Ghana. This project proves something to the whole continent. Africa can lead the clean energy future instead of chasing it from behind. Imagine Nigeria scaling bamboo or agricultural waste into its own biofuel industry. Imagine Kenya combining bamboo with geothermal energy. Imagine Ethiopia merging biomass with its massive renewable power potential. Once one African nation successfully breaks into a high-tech sector, others follow, and together, they shift the balance of global energy influence. What makes all of this even more powerful is the message behind it. Ghana didn't become a clean energy leader because someone handed it a ready-made blueprint. It became a leader because it dared to do something the world assumed it couldn't. And now everybody else has to adjust. But that leads us to the final, most important question in this entire story. The one that determines how history will judge this moment. Is this bamboo refinery truly a turning point for Ghana and Africa? Or is it just a temporary burst of excitement? When you look at everything unfolding around this bamboo refinery, the scale, the timing, the global demand, the jobs, the land restoration, it becomes clear that this moment is not accidental. It isn't hype. It isn't a trend. It isn't one of those big announcements that fade away after a few months. Something here is different. You can feel it in the way the project is structured, the way the technology partners are chosen, the way communities are involved, and even in the way Ghana is responding to global supply chain pressures. This feels like the beginning of a shift, not a momentary headline. And if we're being honest, Africa hasn't had many moments like this. Moments where the continent leads rather than follows, where it builds instead of borrows, and where it shapes global conversations rather than reacting to them. This refinery represents a choice. Ghana chose to innovate instead of imitate. It chose to invest instead of waiting. It chose to build a green industrial economy instead of relying on old, unreliable systems. Think about the symbolism. Bamboo, a plant the world barely considers, becomes the foundation for a billion-dollar green revolution. That alone says something powerful about Africa's ability to find strength in places others overlook. For decades, Africa was told it needed foreign technology, foreign consultants, foreign validation, foreign readiness assessments, before it could attempt anything on this scale. Ghana ignored all of that. It took a local resource, paired it with global technology, and created a model the world now has no choice but to pay attention to. And the timing is perfect. The world is hungry, desperate actually, for renewable fuels. Airlines need SAF. Manufacturers need green feedstocks. Governments are scrambling to meet climate deadlines. For the first time in a long time, Africa holds a resource that the rest of the world cannot delay, negotiate down, or replace easily. That creates leverage, and leverage creates power. For a continent that has spent decades negotiating from a position of weakness, this is a profound shift. But beyond economics and global politics, there is something more personal happening. Young people in Ghana are witnessing a real example of industrial ambition, something they can be proud of, something they can participate in, something that shows them they don't need to run to Europe or America to find opportunity. Rural farmers are seeing proof that sustainable income doesn't have to come from deforestation or risky crops. Women in cooperatives are finding a place in an industry big enough to reward their work fairly. This refinery doesn't just transform the country, it transforms mindsets. And mindset changes are often the most powerful changes of all. So yes, this is a turning point. Not because the refinery itself is magic, but because it represents a new kind of African decision-making, one that is bold, strategic, and unafraid to lead. If bamboo alone can push Ghana this far, imagine what happens when Africa unlocks its other hidden strengths: solar corridors, geothermal fields, agricultural residues, hydropower zones, coastal wind systems, rare earth minerals, and everything else the continent has quietly held for centuries. Which leaves us with one final question. One bigger than Ghana, bigger than bamboo, and bigger than this refinery. If Africa can do this with one resource, what happens when the entire continent starts believing in its own power, the same way Ghana just did? Let us know in the comment section. Should Africa step up? Do you want to watch more videos like this one? If so, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon next to it. We have decided to bring videos on something nobody talks about: the Black culture, civilization, history, and evidence about how glorious Blacks have been. Thanks for watching, and until the next video, stay tuned.